Page 63 from Water Bears No Scars. Correspondence Guidance. Some students of this constructive lifestyle find it difficult or impossible to come to weekly, individual, or group sessions. They may live in an area that has no teacher guide yet. Reading the literature and practicing the assignments on their own provides some help, but they have specific questions and desires a more personal, individualized course for growth. These students may undertake training through correspondence. Morita therapists in Japan have offered correspondence counseling, Tagami Sodan in Japanese, for many years. We have begun offering the same service in the West for nearly 10 years now. A typical response during a course of guidance by mail follows. It has been edited to protect the identity of the correspondent. He was an office manager in his late 20s with an introspective and philosophical bent. Much of his suffering and most of his questions centered around existential concerns and problems with his fiancée, Karen. The letter goes, Dear X, thank you for the information and the check. You did a careful and diligent job on the time-sampled schedule. Your questions are thoughtful. Your writing is legible. You are a serious student. First, some logistics. I'll be in Japan March 31st through June 19. My address is. Please make sure you copy each letter you send me so that you can refer back to it when reading my comments. Some of the assignments will have purposes that you readily understand. Some will have purposes that are written in the books, but have additional purposes that aren't written in them. In others, you'll have to figure out the purposes while doing them. Just give them a try and see what happens. If you doubt the usefulness for you, that's fine. It's up to you to do them or not. But I believe that you will find that the assignments are useful, whatever doubts you may entertain initially. Let's begin with some initial responses to your questions. Paying full attention is what you were doing when you wrote the question in the letter. What is your purpose in sitting meditation? In other words, what is the goal? If there is something you have decided is more important than setting each morning, then do it. If not, sit well without wishing you were elsewhere, without getting away from it early or on a whim. When something more important appears, then leave the sitting immediately without leaving your mind back in the sitting. Purposeful living means being able to answer the questions, why am I doing this now? At any moment. It is the opposite of aimless moments. In another sense, it is the opposite of feeling-centeredness. The focus is on doing, action, behavior that is goal-directed, while feelings are noted, not suppressed or ignored, and used as information. The behavior is goal-pulled rather than feeling-pushed. About Christianity and constructive living. I find no difference between God's will for my life and what reality presents that needs doing. That is, God's will for me is the reality presented to me. Christian principles of prayer, tithing, worshiping in groups, and so on, all have a practical aspect understood in terms of what we do, regardless of whether we feel angry, devoted, or guilty in regard to the church at any moment, can provide stability and order in our lives and change who we are. There's no necessity to make the connection as I do. We can discuss details more if you have specific questions. Better to become skillful at constructive living first. Acceptance means recognizing what is. Wishing it were otherwise changes nothing. When we have a clear sense of how things are, we are in the best position to do our best to change them for the better. But when we do everything we can and the changes we want don't appear, that reality we must accept too, and perhaps work some more. Watch and see how much of your anger problem is connected with your lack of acceptance of how things are and your inability to control reality directly, immediately, the way you would like. Our training won't make the anger go away, but you'll get good at accepting the anger too, without acting from it. And then the anger will begin to become less obtrusive. Fatalism is far from acceptance. Principles are some of the criteria by which we decide what needs to be done. Principles help focus on our purposes. There's no problem with being hypocritical if your purpose is blameless. When I'm upset and still present a calm facade to a sobbing student, then I'm willing to be called hypocritical. I would prefer to use the term to describe someone who conceals evil actions with a face of saintliness. We all fit that definition at times. To accept unpleasant feelings and stay in control of behavior isn't hypocritical in this sense. It is noble. Feelings are neither good nor bad, just natural phenomena. Like the breeze, it is the doing that can be seen in terms of good and bad meaningfully. Acting and writing are not escapes from reality, as you know. They are ways we create reality in certain moments. We do them with full attention. I read science fiction some, and I like Walker Percy, the novelist. Sometimes reading needs to be done. Problem appears when people read novels in order to avoid doing something that needs doing. Be careful of your tendency to try to apply some sort of across-the-board evaluation, good, bad, and so forth. That Catholic background, just do what you know you need to be about in this very moment, and these philosophical questions will seem less important to you. Work on the doing. The rest will become clear. Assignments. Please begin a journal of the sort described in exercise 3, page 84 of Constructive Living. Send me any week's entries, 1 page per day, in your next letter. Please begin considering Cone 3, page 23, in playing ball or running water. Consider various responses. Critique each one until you find one that is blameless, perfect. Send me a summary of what occurred to you and the critiques. Thank Karen 10 times each day, whether you feel grateful or not. Thank objects, your car, pen, whatever, 10 times a day. Aloud is preferable, but in private is all right. Write about the exercise. Ask questions. Let me know what is going on in your life. Keep up the practice. Observing the waxing and waning of interest and enthusiasm. Write again when that needs to be done. Send a check as before. I'll reply from wherever I am at the time. Hold to your purpose. David K. Reynolds. The next essay, page 67, is realism. Anyone who has spent years working in a garden or in the fields knows impermanence intimately. We see the cycles of seasons, the coming and going of insects, droughts, freezes, rot, the seeds that sprout or die, the life cycles of plants, bountiful harvests, and the lean. It is all change. There is nothing that can be counted on with certainty to be exactly as it was last year. Our only recourse is to keep on fitting what we do, adapting who we are to the constantly changing circumstances. It does no good to tell the grasshopper eating the soybean leaves, you shouldn't really be doing that. Wishing the rain would stop or come doesn't affect the weather or the plants. Analyzing how we feel about fungus doesn't save the cabbage. We need a more realistic perspective and straightforward action to have a chance to affect the changes we desire. I am not being passive or resigned when I emphasize the changeableness of the world and the necessity of our adapting to it. Only when we have a clear vision of this flux and our place in it does our effort mean something. To work and succeed and play and love while pretending it will all last, while ignoring the fragile momentariness of it all, is to miss the chance for depth in all these activities. To try while dying, to love while changing, to play while acknowledging the impermanence allows a kind of nobility to the simplest act, to someone that was only childish, to something that was only childish escape before. There is nothing ennobling about suffering itself, but in striving while suffering, we move beyond ourselves to become new creatures, whether the striving attains what we set out to accomplish or not. Pain and self-doubt and fear and anger don't necessarily stimulate growth, but they do permit it. When the effort is there, change is inevitable. In the garden, in us. Some of the changes we can influence, some we cannot. Our fundamental hope lies in affecting the change that is us. Thank you for listening to another section of the book, Water Bears No Scars. I appreciate you.